Hey, Mike.
Hey, Janelle.
Let's see. And there we go.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Janelle Briggs. I'm the co-founder of Stackhouse. This is my partner, Ryan. We have some housekeeping to go over before we get started. This is one of the first neighborhood meetings that we've held that's been held on Zoom since the pandemic. So please be gentle with us as we go through this process. To sign into this meeting, please go ahead and type your name in the chat box, and that's how we'll record your presence here today. I do want to note that this meeting is being recorded, so feel free to turn off your video if you'd prefer to not be recorded. Also at this time, if you'd go ahead and put yourself on mute and stay muted throughout the presentation, we would appreciate it. If at any time throughout the presentation you have questions, feel free to go ahead and pop those in the chat box, and we'll have a time at the end of the presentation to answer any questions that come up. A copy of this recording and the slide deck will be made available by request and also submitted to the city as part of our application. Any additional comments or concerns can be emailed to us at questions@stackhouse.life. If you have called into this meeting, if you could go ahead and unmute yourself really quickly and say your name, and that's how we'll capture your attendance. Did anyone call in this evening? Okay, all right.
I don't see anybody called in, Janelle. I'll keep an eye on that for you.
Thanks, Mike. So our agenda for this evening, we'll do introductions, we'll discuss the project, specifically the site plan, parking, exterior design, landscaping, community amenities, and then our IID designation and GPLET. We'll also go over the attraction that we have here in the city of Tucson. And in the introduction, I'll also go over Stackhouse as a startup and kind of give you an overview of the vision for our company. So we are a Tucson-based real estate startup. We started our company in 2017. Ryan and I are both life partners and business partners, and this idea came out of our desire to downsize, and in not finding a solution that worked for us in the market, we decided that we would start a company to address a need that we saw in the market. So our goal is to build vertical container communities in cities all across the country. We're building our flagship location here in Tucson at 941 North Stone. We sell shipping container tiny homes that start at $45,000, and we'll talk more about them a little bit later. We have been working on this concept since 2017, and I am delighted to say that in that time we have set up an opportunity zone fund with Beach Fleischman here in Tucson, so we can provide those investment benefits to folks who invest in our company. We were recently selected as the first place team in the inaugural cohort of the Forge Incubator at the University of Arizona. And we launched one of the first equity crowdfunding campaigns in Tucson, which means that folks in our community have invested in our business to help us raise the funds we need to build this project that we'll be sharing with you this evening. So it's a really exciting time for Tucson and for Ryan and I to see the vision that we've been working on for several years finally come to fruition. And so it's my pleasure to introduce you to the rest of our team who have joined us this evening. Our architect who you will hear from some this evening is Randy Jacob. His family is local to Tucson, and he's a local architect and owns his own business. Our CFO is Crystal Royce. She owns the Royce CPA firm and employs several people here in Tucson. She works primarily with businesses and real estate folks. And our marketing team is 925 Design, Marissa Dominguez and Corinne Hankins. All of these folks are from Tucson. Most were educated at the University of Arizona. We are very excited to both build a business here and provide a new and exciting form of housing for the very first time in the world right here in Tucson, very first.
So what you're seeing here is our proposed site plan on the first floor. It's at our property at 941 North Stone. As you can see, it is a through lot. So what we're proposing is an entrance off of Stone and an entrance into the property and then exit out the rear of the property. The project site is just about 12,000 square feet, zone C3. And we, by right, can build 24 units on site. And the purpose of the meeting tonight is to discuss expanding that building envelope a little bit and reducing the parking requirements as well. It is our goal to build a brand new type of housing, and the way that we aim to make housing more affordable is through density. And so if we can get more units on site, that helps us to keep rents relatively low and helps us to create more homeowners. So this is our proposed elevation. The site at C3 is limited to 75 feet. And that is right about here where the container stops. So we have just a little bit above for utility. The first floor is parking exclusively. There are 2 elevators and 2 stairwells to access the upper floors. This is a stairwell. This is an elevator. This is an elevator. This is a stairwell. On these plans, you can see that we are planning to incorporate a visual screening wall on the first floor to block parking view into the building, along with these green space wires for ivy to grow up. That way it's not an enclosed hot box, but still visually screened from the street. So the layout that we have here is 10 homes per floor, with the exception of the top floor, which will have 9 homes. And then a communal outdoor space with a sort of barbecue kitchen area and an unsexed bathroom, so that residents won't have to exclusively rely on their units if they have a few guests over.
You can also see here, these are solar panels. We're partnering with Nerd Power, which is a company outside of Phoenix, for our solar power. We're really excited about working with them. They have a really intuitive dashboard that will allow us to manage the power use on the property. And each resident will also get their own dashboard so that they can manage their power use individually as well. All utilities are included in the monthly rental payments to dock a container home in a Stackhouse tower. So it's incumbent upon us to keep those costs as low as possible. And so we're excited to have solar panels provided by Nerd Power and the ability to monitor all of our residents' power usage. We're also partnering with a local Tucson company called Rainblocks for our water harvesting storage. We got actually a little overzealous, and we can hold more water on the project than the site actually gets in a year. And what's really great about Rainblocks is we've actually integrated them and the solar panels into the structure of the design of the tower itself. So it's one of our goals to make sure that sustainable and eco-friendly living, like all of those choices for our residents, are a no-brainer. They're built into the Stackhouse life.
So I just want to point out that real fast, each of these white blocks up here is 2 rain blocks, and that's a storage capacity of 100 gallons. And the reason that we're storing them on each floor is so that we can reduce our electrical use even more, so that the water that's stored on the top floor will be used to water the green space and other landscaping on the floor below, and so on and so forth, so we don't have to rely on a giant cistern under the building to pump all of that rainwater up. All right, so this is our floor plan along with some color renderings so that you can get a little bit better view. I want to zoom in here and show you. We are planning on incorporating Tucson's first parking stacking system. Because our lot is so small and we're trying to get as many residents into the building as possible, we are relying on a company called City Park to build our car stacking system. They have been around for over 25 years. We have a little video to show later on exactly how this system works. But it's very intuitive and we're very excited to be the first ones to bring it here to Tucson. While we could end up negotiating an agreement with a neighboring parcel for parking, our goal is to design this building so that we can place it in the other markets that we would like to build in the future. So as much of San Francisco zoning code and the other more intense building codes in the country, as many of those constraints as we can build into this building, the better for us so that we don't have to make changes going forward.
The goal of Tucson is to be a rapid deployment solution for the home ownership crisis. And so we've designed this building that we're building first here in Tucson to San Francisco code, which is one of the highest building codes in the country, so that we can take these plans that we spent years developing and go ahead and deploy them quickly in cities across the country. So yeah, that's bit more. Someone just hopped on. If you could go ahead and mute yourself and type your name in the chat. That way we can record your presence here this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Anything else to say here?
So you can see some of our tech here. The way that the homes will be delivered, the truck drives into the center of the building and we have a central hoistway here that will attach to the container, lift it up through the center of the building, and then we'll slide it into its final location in one of these spaces. All of these homes can be independently accessed and removed and installed without having to bother any of the other residents. And we anticipate that that process of getting it from the truck into the hoistway will last less than an hour. So as long as we do it on off hours, none of these vehicles will be impeded in any way. So these are the neighborhoods that we noticed as part of this. We just wanted to make sure that you guys were all aware of who was invited to be on this call and to come to the neighborhood meeting.
So now we have some more renderings to show you just so that you can get an idea of what the development will look like. As Ryan said, the truck will pull in through the center of the building. On each floor, we have these community seating spaces. One of the big complaints of tiny living is that your house is small, and so we've tried to be really thoughtful in providing spaces for folks to hang out outside of their developments. This is a shot of the rooftop deck. We'll have a fire pit. These smaller cubes that you see here, we're calling them privacy pods. And so there'll be several of them on each floor with different themes. So an office pod, a workout space, like a living room setting, just comfortable spaces outside of your tiny home that you can reserve if you'd like. So if you need to take a call, get away from your kids for a hot minute, there are spaces in the development where you can go and kind of have a different experience.
And we are very much looking forward to having each of those pods painted by a local muralist. So if you know of anyone who might be interested, we are just starting to reach out to people in the art community in Tucson to see if they'd like to take on one of our pods.
Yeah. So actually, go ahead.
Okay, so this meeting is predominantly about GPLET, landscape, and parking. So we'll deal with parking first. Because we are in the Downtown Links IID, we are able to apply for additional benefits that also benefit the city. One of them is reduced parking through an individual parking plan. Initially, we thought that we would only be able to hit about 70%, and that's in line with other developments that have been approved by the city more recently. But through the use of our car stacking system, we have actually gotten to 37 parking spaces, and that includes 2 handicap accessible spaces on the first floor. that are not a part of the city lift system in any way. When we took reservations, which we have 50% of this development reserved, we asked how important parking was to them, and we gave them 3 opportunities to list their priorities. Only 16 of our 28 reservation holders listed parking as something important to them in one of those 3 opportunities.
And all of those 16 people listed parking as their 3rd priority.
So our customers are not the traditional luxury apartment who wants to have at least 2 spaces big enough for 2 SUVs. These people are making very intentional choices, and having a giant car is not one of them. If we were to take the percentage of people who have reserved cars and extrapolate that out to the entire development, we would only really need 28 spaces. So that would leave us an additional 9 spaces for visitors to the development, people dropping someone off, things like that.
So now we're gonna watch the city.
My name is Nikki Mohana, and I'm a real estate developer with Mohana Development. We are primarily focused on urban infill development here in Sacramento, focused on building housing for our urban workforce. 19J is an 11-story residential development here in Midtown Sacramento with 175 residential units, primarily micro units and studios, so it's the first of its kind here in Sacramento. I'd always seen automated parking in larger cities, starting in Tokyo and in New York. So I was really fascinated by the way that they were able to utilize their small footprint and provide density in very tight spaces. So as Sacramento has continued to grow, we really are starting to look at those implementations of innovation, and we saw city lift projects in the Bay Area, and we're really impressed with the way that they were utilizing tight footprints and bringing so much value and innovation into these projects. So we were really excited to collaborate with City Lift to bring that innovation here to Sacramento. We really loved working with City Lift from the very onset of the design of our project. There was a lot of collaboration that happened with the City Lift engineers to ensure that we were maximizing our space here in our design, and that was really started from the beginning of the conceptual design all the way through construction. So we had a very collaborative experience working together, and I think it was a very critical component because there has to be all that collaboration in order to bring the greatest efficiency to our project. City Lift has been an amazing partner to work with, and I would definitely utilize City Lift on every single project that we do.
So now I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about the Stackhouse container homes. So all of our homes start at $45,000. Our residents can pick their floor plan, the appliances, paint colors. Every detail is left up to them. Right now we have 3 floor plans that our residents can choose from. We have a studio, a 1-bedroom, and what we're calling a 2-bedroom flex. So a couple of our residents, it was really important that they have 2 spaces with a door, and so we were able to accommodate all of these different floor plans in a standard shipping container. So all of our units are 320 square feet. We build in 40-foot high box containers, so they start out at 9.5 feet tall, and then by the time we're finished building out the container, you're left with about an 8.5-foot ceiling. Here are some images of container homes that have been built by our manufacturer. We'll actually be placing the order for the model unit hopefully next week. So there'll be a container home here in Tucson that you'll be able to schedule an appointment and tour. And we're really excited to be able to show folks the kind of home that they'll be living in. As far as community amenities, I mentioned the privacy pods. On the very first floor, we have bike storage and other spaces for large items. And then coming soon, one of the things that's important to us is that we partner with folks in the community. So anything that we build on site, we have to charge for. And so we want to be able to offer amenities, but in ways that are price conscious. So maybe a partnership with the Sahara so our residents can use their pool, or maybe with the YMCA for a gym membership. So we're starting to talk with folks about ways that we can get our residents into the community when that's safe again, so that we can maintain great amenities at an affordable price.
Okay, so what are we here asking for? When we started Stackhouse in 2017, we started at a $600 a month rental entry point. And it is now 2020, and we have only raised that starting rental point $50. And the cost of construction has continued to rise. And worse for us is the cost of borrowing money to build the development. Because nothing like this has been constructed elsewhere, traditional bankers are very leery. Their money is very expensive, so we're being forced to rely on very non-traditional financing means, which is more expensive. If we want to maintain the affordability of our units, we're asking for tax through the ID program for the first 8 years. So the way that would work is the city would take ownership of the property. We would lease it from them at 10% of the cost of our property taxes. And then starting in year 9, we would start paying as usual. One additional benefit afforded us because of the location of the property is a $10,000 building permit fee waiver. And that's something that I think the city awards, but we wanted to make you, the neighbors, aware that we would be asking for that. It's not something that comes directly out of taxes. It's out of permit fees that we would pay to the city as part of the development. And our permit fees, I guarantee, will be well in excess of $10,000. In addition, we're asking for more density. As zoned, we can build at least 24 units on site, and we would like to build 49. So it's almost double what we can build by right. And then we are looking to reduce part of the landscaping at the front of the property. The city requires that you have a 5-foot landscaping buffer. And we are hoping to do that in a private public partnership so that it's more of a transition zone from the public area into the Stackhouse entrance, and that of course will be at Stackhouse's cost. This is all the information about the GPLET program. We wanted to include it on here since this meeting is being recorded. If you have any questions about the program specifically and our application to utilize it, please feel free to send us an email or raise your hand at the end of this, and we will do our best.
So nationally, we're targeting 2 customer groups for Stackhouse: millennials who have been priced out of the traditional starter home market, or who can't seem to get a leg up in all of the competition from downsizing baby boomers and investors who are buying those first-time priced homes to flip. Our other target market is what we're calling downsizing baby boomers. So folks who are ready to retire, want to downsize and have more flexibility, but are very concerned about making sure that their finances last them for their foreseeable future. And Stackhouse gives them the ability to really track those expenses, because our homes are the same price as an SUV, and we offer minimum 5-year leases for spaces in our tower. So our residents know exactly what they're going to be spending on all of their living expenses for 5 years locked. Here in Tucson, our reservations, 60% said that they would need financing to purchase their container home. Our manufacturer that we've partnered with in Texas offers in-house financing. There are also some national lenders like Sophie and Lightstream that offer financing for what are essentially mobile homes or like boats and SUVs. Container homes fall in that same loan category. And then almost 40% said that they would be buying their home straight out with cash. We've got some other demographic info for you that you can take a look at as well. And then one of the other questions that we get a lot is, what does it cost to live in a Stackhouse community? And so we wanted to go over that really quickly with you. So based on the two types of reservations we have, the folks who would need to get a loan for their container home, we're calling that person post-recession Joe. So in that first column, you can see they'd be paying $891 a month for their container home. And we're assuming the worst absolute loan terms in this scenario. So a 5-year term at a 7% interest. This person would live on that lowest tier, which is $650 a month to dock their home in a Stackhouse tower. And so their monthly payment is $1,541. For our customers who are buying their container outright, that line is 0. This particular example is living on the most expensive floor, which is $1,200 a month. If you scroll on one over, the brand new apartments that were just built in downtown Tucson, their rent starts at $1,040, and then you also have to pay utilities, cable, parking, and so you're coming out at $1,433 a month for a new apartment downtown. And then we're building our flagship location here because Tucson is our home. We know the folks at the city. And if we tried to build a development like this where no one knows us, we would get stuck in the mud. And so we compare it to San Francisco. That's where Ryan got his experience building condos, where it took, no joke, 5 years to get a regular condo project re-entitled. The permits had just expired, and it took 5 years to get those same permits reapproved. And so in San Francisco, rent for a similarly sized apartment, $3,700 a month. When I pulled this comp, there were no parking spaces available for units in that development, but if they were, they started at $450 a month. So while we are similarly priced to other developments in Tucson, remember this is just the first stop in our journey, and we're excited to build the business here in our city. We are planning to build in 25 cities over the next 5 years, just to give you some scale on the work that Ryan and our team are doing in anchoring this business here in Tucson. We acquired the property here in Tucson with a local investor last summer. We are already pre-approved for a construction loan for 60% of the cost of construction. The same lender who helped us purchase the land is lending us 30% of the cost of construction. And as I mentioned earlier, we're currently doing an equity crowdfunding campaign to raise $500,000, which will release both of those construction loans so that we can start building here in Tucson. Just a quick list of other folks here in the city that we're working with. As I mentioned, we're in the new Forge Business Incubator at the university. Bob Davis with Tango Commercial Real Estate as our lead investor for our equity financing. We're working with Habitat for Humanity and Pima Community College to work with them on potentially bringing the manufacturing of our container homes into Tucson and adding manufactured housing as a trades line at Pima Community College. And all of our legal attorneys are here in Tucson as well. So that brings us to the end of the prepared presentation. I'm going to see if I can find the chat box and see what questions we might have so far. So far, I don't see any. If you have a question at this time, feel free to take yourself off mute and go ahead and ask. Natasha, I see, there you go.
Yeah, I have a question. I sit on the Historic 4th Avenue Coalition Board, and we have been the first GPLET that, the first community benefits agreement that went along with the GPLET. And I'm curious to know, since you're going after a GPLET and you have, like, what I wrote down were 4 basic asks that you're asking for, would you consider doing a community benefit agreement to get the neighborhoods to agree to do the GPLET with you so that you get your 4 asks and we get some assurances of where things will go with the development and how the development will work with the community and things like that. And obviously it'd have to be something that's ironed out with specifics, but I just wanted to know if you'd even consider it.
Yeah, absolutely. We met with, what was his name? The gentleman who negotiated that deal on behalf of the neighbors. Goodness gracious.
Mike Peel?
There you go, Mr. Peel, yes. And discussed his experience with both that project and the one further south. And yeah, absolutely. We would
Opus.
be doing that.
Yeah, Opus didn't go at all. It was shot down immediately. Yeah.
Our goal is to build housing. We're not doing it to build a monument to us or to make a statement. We want to build better, more housing in neighborhoods that we love, and we don't want to be a detriment to those neighborhoods. So absolutely, if the asks are reasonable, we'd be happy to work with them.
Okay.
Thank you, Natasha. Anybody else? Other questions or thoughts?
I have a bunch, but I don't want to be greedy.
The floor is yours, Karen. Go ahead.
So one question that some people had asked me in terms of the buildings themselves that you're getting from the company in Texas. So do you have knowledge of what they had been used for before, and then what are you doing to, make sure that everything is, safe for humans to be living in?
That's a great question. So there are a lot of tiny home builders right now, and the majority of them are relying on exclusion from the code. Essentially, they're working around it by building tiny homes or by building tiny homes on wheels. My background as a real estate developer tells me that the code is there for a very good reason, and it's to protect the public. So our homes are built to HUD code. So they're federally inspected and approved before they leave the factory. So that means that we know where the containers come from, and all the materials in the container have to be tested by a third-party laboratory. So the wood, the metal, the paint, all of those have to have samples taken and sent to labs to make sure that they don't have any radioactive components or asbestos, or they treat the flooring with a lot of things to keep the wood from rotting. So all of those have to be mitigated before they can be converted to homes.
Additionally, our manufacturer does their best to source what are called one-trip containers that generally, so they've only been shipped once, and we generally source containers that have carried electronics. So TVs, computers, all of those sorts of things. All of the containers they still go through all of that remediation, but we do our best to source smartly as well. Do you have other questions, Karen?
I do. I have a question about the density. So one of the asks was that you wanted to go from 24 units to 49 units. So what does that change height-wise?
It doesn't change anything height-wise.
It's just smush?
Well, because our units are so small, they're only 320 square feet. That's why we can fit so many on the site.
Okay. And then my last question, and I'm saying this only because this is a passion of mine. I like this isn't a dig on the project at all. I like the project. I noticed that you've been talking about it as an affordable project. While it is more affordable than other places, it is not affordable if you go by the definition of using 30% of your income. So if you do that, and Janelle, I wrote down, so that the person that has to buy their unit and they're renting at the lowest one, if that cost is $15.41 a month, someone who makes $18 an hour, which is someone who I would consider would be looking for an affordable type house, their net pay, this ends up being like 60% of their net pay, which would not be affordable. again, it's more affordable than others, absolutely. But I'm concerned about you marketing this as an affordable housing project. So that's just a semantics.
Sure, no problem. We do our best to use the word attainable more often than affordable. For that very reason, we are looking into the traditional affordable housing resources, grant opportunities, so that we can get to that price point. This is also, because this is the very first development, there's not been a lot of push to get better lending rates for container homes. And so we have a lot of advocacy work as well to get container homes out of the chattel category so that we can get more competitive loan rates. That's the biggest expense factor. That combined with the expense that Stackhouse has to pay to be able to build the development are the two things that increase the price that we have to pass on to our residents. And so there are a lot of components that go into the affordability factor. And so I appreciate you bringing up the nuance, and we'll try to do a better job of speaking about that complexity earlier on in presentations. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Okay, we had a couple of questions come in via email, and we'll submit them and you guys will get copies that came in from Armando. He, I believe, is the president of another neighborhood association. He asked how we got to the number of parking spaces. That was as many as we could fit with the car stacking system. It's not something that the city told us to do. It's what we are asking from our neighbors. And if you guys approve, then the city will have a final say, but they did not instruct us in any way as to which numbers to propose. There are 2 handicap spaces that are on the surface. He asked, will the parking spaces be all on surface or all automated car stacking? So we have 2 handicap parking spaces that are not different in any way. And then all the rest of the parking is in the system. And the system itself allows for residents to access it via key fob, so they can hit it like a garage door opener when they drive up, and the same when they need to leave. Guests have to punch in a little code and then retrieve their car the same way so that they get their car back out. What are the containers? As we said, they are 40-foot high box shipping containers that are all one-trip use. They're all inspected. They are all built according to a previously approved HUD manufacturing plan. And then HUD comes through and inspects as they're building the home to make sure that they're following the process that's been approved. And then they get a tag that makes it 50 state legal when it leaves the manufacturing center. And the reason that we chose them is they are the best and the easiest dimensions to move internationally. So while we like that we are recycling shipping containers, ultimately we are committed to those dimensions more than a steel box. So later on there might be other innovations into what types of units we use, but an 8-foot wide container can be moved down the street or on a train without any additional expense, or those vehicles driving down the way, guiding them to their next spot.
And because our goal is to build locations around the country and around the world, our residents will be able to buy one home and move it to any city where they need to go for work or family or for fun. And so it costs about $2 a mile to ship a container by truck, and about $2,000 to ship a container from LA to Tokyo. So Stackhouse is really one of the first innovations in housing since the condo back in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're really excited to build it for the first time here in Tucson, and have our city be the epicenter of a global revolution in how people live and how they move. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. If you
Janelle, there was a question in the chat.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Clarify, residents are locked into a 5-year lease.
Okay. So yes, the way that we're doing the Tucson development, you buy your container home for $45,000 and then you rent a space in the tower that comes with all of your utilities and everything that the house needs to function. So internet, cable, electrical, water. We are offering 5-year leases so that our residents have a sense of ownership of the development. We're not going to have someone there managing it, sitting behind a desk all day, every day, babysitting our residents. We want them to feel like they are part owners of this development. So that's why we're doing longer term leases. It also allows our residents to plan longer term. So they know exactly what their housing costs are going to be for the next 5 years. And then our rental increases are capped at 3% per year. So if you take the 5-year lease, do 3% increases over that time period, that's what the next rental rate is. And our residents will have first opportunity to renew at that rate. As far as locked in, we don't want to have anyone living in our development that doesn't want to live there. That never works out well for residents or landlords. So we would do our best to find someone else to take over that lease, either purchase the home from you as well, or purchase their own custom home and rent out your space. It makes it much more likely that someone else will like your space if they can custom design a home that works for their needs to put in that location. So we're anticipating that people will be less trapped than they would be in previous housing options.
Did you have another question that came in?
The other question was, are we building on the old Owl building site? I didn't know this at the time, but I guess the property just to the south of us was an Owl printing shop. The family's owner, or the owner's family was named Owl. It is not. We are building on the lot just north of that building. So we are not within a historic designation, but we are bordered by historic neighborhoods.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Do you mind showing on the floor plan how the cars are, where the cars go on each floor? Because I didn't understand where they were going to be, that piece of it. I could see where the units are, but not the cars.
This one? Yep. So this is stone. This is the alley. And so you'll drive through. There's a car stacking system here. There is one missing on the second floor. So this is 9 parking spaces, 9 parking spaces, 9 parking spaces, 5 parking spaces, and 3 parking spaces. There are 2 handicap accessible. They go straight to this elevator, and then pedestrians walking in go through this man door and to the same elevator, or another elevator here. Does that answer your question, Natasha?
I think so. So the parking's on the ground floor and then the second floor, basically.
No,
But it's not like,
just the
sorry.
ground floor. So the bottom car actually goes underground a little bit.
Okay, see, I thought that's what I was trying. I thought you were, because you called it car stacking, I thought it was going to be on the upper floors, and that's why I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, no, so they go from, because we have to drive a semi into the first floor, that ceiling height is much higher than it would be in a traditional parking garage. So we can go 1 car and then another car right on top of it.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, because I didn't understand that at all.
It'll all be on the first floor.
No worries. Other questions, anyone? Okay, thank you all so much for joining us. If you have other thoughts, comments, or questions, feel free to email them. Our email address is questions@stackhouse.life. And Mike, or is there anything else, Barbara, that we need to do to wrap things up?
No, I was just going to say, if anybody wants to leave their contact information in the chat for us, that would be great. There's a call-in number, 520-270-1269. If you want to give us your information so we can log you in on the sign-in sheet, you can just unmute yourself and let us know, or not. It's up to you. I think we're good unless there's any other questions from anybody.
Okay.
That was fantastic, Janelle. Ryan, thank you for sharing all of that, all the information that was really above and beyond. It's apparent that you're passionate about what you're doing, and it's exciting to watch it unfold. So we'll help you along the way. And again, want to let everyone in the community know that if they have questions as well from our economic initiatives team, please feel free to reach out to us as well.
Sabrina, I just saw your question in the chat. If you will drop in your email address, I will email this presentation and the PowerPoint deck to you. And anybody else, if you'd like a copy, feel free to drop your email.
Yeah, that's not just Sabrina. Anybody else that wants this presentation.
We'll also, we'll post it to our Facebook. So it'll be there as well. Thanks, Sabrina.
All right.
Okay. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you so
all.
much.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.